It was great reality TV, even without the surprise ending. No, there will not be a Christmas election. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
2 + 2 equals no election. It came right down to the wire, but in the end, Prime Minister Carney's first budget is over the finish line, in part because 2 Conservative MPs didn't vote. Same with a pair of New Democrats, so the final score 170 to 168. But there were some mini dramas getting there, such as when NDP MP Leah Gazin caused some confusion while trying to vote remotely.
The honourable member, if I could have a bit of silence in the House so I can hear the honourable member, how does the honourable member vote?
Yes or no?
Yes, I just want to make sure.
That's yes? Ms. Gazan, your vote has been registered as no. Are you attempting to change that vote?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Then just moments later, Conservative MP Andrew Scheer, who is usually an encyclopedia on House of Commons procedure, being a former Speaker of the House, wanted to make sure he cast his vote in person, claiming he was having trouble voting online.
The honourable official opposition House leader has a point.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I had technical difficulty. I would like to vote no.
And then there was Conservative MP Scott Reid, who's been an MP for more than 25 years. He also rushed into the House of Commons, claiming he couldn't vote online either.
Who?
Mr. Reid. You can just recognize
Mr. Reid, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I was unable to use my app. I would like to vote no.
Anyone else?
No, there wasn't anybody else. And so the opposition did not play Grinch. There won't be a Christmas election. And today there is joy in the Liberal version of Whoville.
Nays pour 170, 170. Nays contre 168, 163.
I declare the motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
After the vote, it was up to a select few to explain why things worked out the way they did. For example, 2 NDP MPs didn't vote, but 5 NDP MPs did. And they all voted against the budget. Yet still, the party's interim leader, Don Davies, was asked, why does the NDP continue to prop up the Liberals?
You're saying it's the Liberals' job, but yet you're helping the Liberals avoid an election by abstaining. Why?
Look, there's 343 people in the House of Commons. I've said from the beginning that it's Mark Carney's responsibility as the Prime Minister of a minority government to craft a budget that can earn majority support. But at the same time, we're in a unique situation right now, 6 months after the last election, where Canadians don't want an election right now. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. There is no strong desire for an election among the Canadian people. And we believe that it's important to tap into what Canadians want. And second, what's very important is the economic precarity that we're facing right now. You know, we have serious economic issues. Mr. Trump is changing his mind every day, and it's not the right time for our country to plunge into an election.
Don Davies was then asked, what did the NDP gain for letting the budget pass?
We didn't get any concessions.
You're propping, didn't get anything in return?
We're not propping anybody up. We voted no against the budget. We voted no.
Do you feel like you have any leverage now to push for amendments to this budget, to slow down the process of the implementation and therefore the cuts to the public service? I mean, what leverage do you have left now that you've abstained from this vote?
Well, I've said from the beginning that in a minority parliament where there are 3 opposition parties that hold a balance of power, all of us at one point or another have some leverage. We're going to continue to have conversations with the Liberals. I mean, we were engaged in discussions with them over the past few weeks. We did put forth a number of positive proposals that would have gathered. Well, we're not going to bargain in public at this point, but they were concrete proposals that reflected the needs of working families and people across this country, and the Liberals were not ready to say yes to them. So we're going to continue pushing for policies to help working people.
With a vote that close, every vote counts. Even Elizabeth May's one lone Green vote. She said originally she would be a no on the budget, but then as she usually does, she came around to the Liberal way of thinking.
I couldn't vote for that budget as I read it. I made it clear why I found it so very deficient. And one of the reasons was the Paris Agreement, and our commitment to it wasn't even mentioned. Our commitments to climate adaptation weren't mentioned. And I felt it weakened where we were on the nature agenda and the Kunming-Montreal Agreement that wasn't mentioned. So, as you could tell, and as I've said for so often that I think I've spoken to all of you individually, I was still talking to the government, talking to people within the Prime Minister's office, talking to various ministers, to see if there was some way to remedy a document in print that I couldn't support. I think we found that way today.
With the budget drama over, the Prime Minister will soon wave goodbye once more to Canada and head overseas, but not before taking part in a state dinner with the King and Queen of Sweden. They're in Ottawa today. And then later tonight, Prime Minister Carney will depart Ottawa for a trip to Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Well, he's with us every week to talk about some of the big issues of the day. Professor Ian Lee is back from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back. Good to hear from you.
My pleasure, Rob. We're going to be talking about some really important stuff today. We always do, but This is really, really important.
Okay. I'm glad to know I'm on the right track then. I want to begin with healthcare and healthcare reform. I'd like your take. There's a significant item in the Globe and Mail today about a plan from the Alberta government. Let me read a little bit. Alberta intends to allow physicians working in the province's public healthcare system to simultaneously offer services in a parallel private market. Alberta would establish a model for medicine unlike any other in the country. No other Canadian province allows doctors to offer care under both systems at the same time. So there will be the usual questions raised about more private delivery of healthcare services or two-tiered healthcare. What do you think about this?
Rob, this is an idea that has it's been percolating away for many years in Canada. And Quebec is probably, out of all the provinces, Quebec has probably gone furthest in allowing two-tier to emerge. I think 6% of their doctors are operating outside of the Quebec public health care. But the larger issue, and why it's so important that we're now talking about it, is we're fast approaching 25% of the population over 65. And I'm not trying to invoke and say I'm over 65, by the way. I'm not trying to say that we're special people, that we have some special privilege. That's not my point at all. You know me, I'm always data-based, always based on evidence. So I looked this up and this is from CIHI. Older people over 65 consume disproportionately the most amount of healthcare in Canada. So people over 65 who are less than just under 25%, I think it's 22% right now, the population, consume well over half of all the healthcare. Understandably so. As you get older, the body wears out. I know that. You know, I've had 2 full knee replacements. That's called getting old, it's aging. And so where I'm going with this is that there's going to be more and more people who are elderly, and the public healthcare system is getting worse and worse. The queuing measured. Some would say that's ideology or opinion. No, it's not. Measured by the length of the queue in certain areas of healthcare. And so with more and more older people who consume larger amounts statistically on average, like much more, the queues are going to get longer. And so I think that the only way to go is to admit that we need to move towards two-tier healthcare. Very quickly, Rob, we are the only country of the 38 high-income countries, the OECD countries. That's all the countries of Europe, U.S., Canada, New Zealand, Australia. We're the only country that makes it illegal. Think about this, everybody. It's illegal if you are sick. I mean, you've got some terrible illness or sickness, and you're and they say, well, there's a queue. You have to wait and come back in a year, 6 months, a year. You could be dead. And what we're saying is, too bad. Go home, just wait. And if you die while you're waiting on the queue, life's tough. Suck it up. Get over it. This is why I have argued.
But I mean, there are private clinics. There are private clinics. You and I both know there are private medical clinics. They're offering things like membership fees and whatnot. So the government seems to be turning a blind eye if it is illegal, at least when it comes to primary care, Rob, for example.
Rob, you're right, but I'm not dealing with the reality of how we're dealing with it. I'm dealing with those people, and let me put names on it so everybody understands what I'm saying. And I am unionized. CUPE has been leading the way, attacking anybody who advocates two-tier, and they are trying to stop people like me from getting private health care if I think the queue is too long. And I think that this is despicably immoral. I believe it is immoral to deny anybody who's sick and say, we will not allow you to use your own money to go to a healthcare treatment that charges you privately because we don't like it ideologically. Right. So you're going to go home and just suffer. That's
just
wrong,
let me ask you,
Rob.
because I'm going to be asking our callers about this. Let me ask you, I mean, a few decades ago, it was almost taboo, sacrilegious to even suggest that there be more private delivery of healthcare services. Now, I think in the year 2025, it's less so. I think Canadians are increasingly understanding that it operates like this, a public system and a parallel private system in many affluent, wealthy countries all over the world. You mentioned, some of them, especially Sweden. European countries, Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium, a lot of countries, right? Yeah.
The progressive countries, yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? The progressive countries around the world, New Zealand has two-tier, Sweden, Norway, Finland, countries that are widely considered to be very progressive, and they have a full-on two-tier system. And they don't tell people that are sick who don't want to wait in the queue in the public system, they don't tell them, no, you cannot have health care to save your life. This is what is so awful. And I mean on a moral level. On a moral level, what we do in this country is truly awful. And we are
again, from the Globe and Mail, quote, Alberta would establish a model for medicine unlike any in the country. Do you think this, I'll call it the Alberta model, is maybe up for consideration in other parts of the country? Do you think? What's your suspicion? Very quickly.
I think that they will be the trendsetter, first mover, and they will set a precedent that will allow the other provinces that don't have, shall we say, the same political courage who don't want to go out there and be the leader, to follow Alberta. So I do believe this is going to be a trend-setting event that will allow other provinces to follow suit with similar reforms to their healthcare system to allow people that are sick who don't want to wait on the queue.
Okay, let me come back. The latest with Anglo American trying to woo the Carney government to approve its merger with Tech Resources. When we come back on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. So we've been following this story together kind of step by step. In order for mining giant Anglo American to win government approval for its merger with Tech Resources, the Carney Liberals are trying to convince the company Anglo American to re-domicile to Canada. telling your main stock listing should be on the Toronto Stock Exchange, not the London Stock Exchange. Your legal home should be Canada, not the UK. You should be subject to the Canadian tax code. And apparently all of this is non-starter for Anglo-American. What do you think about this?
Well, it's very Trumpian of the Liberal government. I say that very seriously. I'm not playing with words. Trump has interjected time and again using political administrative decisions to replace or displace market decisions that are historically been made by the market economy. Companies are not awards of the state. They make the decision what to produce, where to produce. There are laws that regulate every industry, but that's it. We don't tell the referee of the hockey game. Their job is not to tell Sidney Crosby when to shoot the puck or to coach the team. That's how we've always run the market economy. The Soviet centrally planned economies, of course, did. They went so far as to say, we'll even own the companies, and we will determine what's made and what's not made and where they will locate. We've never done that, and we've been very successful with our hybrid economy. What they're doing here is they're trying to tell the company to relocate. And that's not the role of government. If they want the company to relocate, and I understand we want to attract companies, so do I, well, then create an environment, meaning by environment, laws and regulations that are attractive to companies to come here. Our tax, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow on this. We have the highest corporate income tax, second highest in the OECD. Well, of course this company doesn't want to come here. Why would they want to come here? The laws are much more interventionist. They're much more draconian, and they charge higher rates of tax. So the company is saying, no, it's not in the self-interest of our company and the shareholders and the workers and the investors to move to Canada. Well, then why don't we start benchmarking our laws to find, because we have a lot of capital flight leaving the country. I've got the stats on this also. More and more investment is leaving Canada because it's seen as hostile to business because of the policies passed during the Trudeau years. And there were a lot of them, the no pipeline bill, the tanker ban bill, and so forth. So if we want companies to come here and invest, we do, then let's make our markets and system more competitive, and that will be attractive to them to come here instead of using.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Prime Minister Carney has a lot of ties to the UK, where this company is now domiciled. Yeah. Do you think he would say no to this merger if the company says no to his demands? What do you think? Very quickly.
I don't think so. I hope not. I hope the rational, educated, experienced Carney will prevail over the ideological green Carney that wrote the values book. And I said that very seriously. There's two Carneys. We all agree on this. And I hope that the blue liberal Carney, the business person Carney, the economist Carney, his analysis, his logic will prevail because this will set a dangerous precedent that it's the role of government. This is as bad as 2 years ago when Mr. Trudeau wanted to call in the CEOs of the grocery companies and basically dictate to them what they were going to charge for ketchup and potatoes and milk and eggs. That's not the role of government.
Okay.
That's called,
all right.
That's
Thank
the
you.
role of competition.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Good to hear from you. We'll talk next week. Bye-bye. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Yes, time for our Tuesday Newsday political panel. The professors are here today. Duane Bratt, professor, Mount Royal University. How are you, Professor Bratt? Good to hear from you again.
Yeah.
Very good. And Laurie Turnbull from Dalhousie University in Halifax. Hello, Professor. Good to hear from you as well today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, very good. Professor Bratt, let's start with you. How realistic do you think it was there was ever going to be an election triggered over this budget?
I don't think anyone wanted an election on this budget, but accidents can happen. And so that's why there was so much drama. And quite frankly, anytime you have a minority government, you're going to go through this drama. And the drama yesterday is going to be replicated soon again, maybe not on the budget, but something else.
Okay, well, we can talk about that as we make our way through our panel discussion today. Professor Turnbull, how realistic do you think it was that there was ever going to be an election over the budget?
Oh, almost not a possibility at all, apart from, as Duane says, accidents happen. It's possible someone who planned to vote electronically wouldn't get their internet working or something like that. But ultimately, I think everybody apart from the Bloc Québécois wanted this budget to pass. So much so that the Conservatives, two of their members were kind of waiting around to make sure the vote was going to get through before they entered their no votes electronically, all because they want to vote against the government. They want to take issue with the government. They don't want to do them any favors, but they didn't want to end up in the polls either. So here we are. I'm not surprised at all.
Not surprised at all. Okay.
Yeah, I want to build on what Lori said.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of gamesmanship going on last night because neither the NDP or the Conservatives want to go to an election, but they didn't want to be seen as supporting the budget. And so there was a game of chicken. So you had a couple Conservatives led by Andrew Scheer, their House leader, sitting behind a curtain in Parliament saying that they're abstaining. Then a couple NDPs abstained, and then the Conservatives rushed in to say, no, they're actually voting no, and heckled the NDP for abstaining, even though if the NDP had voted no, the Conservatives would have abstained. So it was a game of chicken on who they could blame, and you saw that in the press conferences afterwards.
Yeah. I bet it was a busy day, maybe even a sleepless night the night before for the whips, Professor Turnbull, have to try and herd all of these cats and make sure everything is and the House leaders, of course, right? They probably had busy days.
Oh, sure, because it's the appearance of it all too, right? Like I think at the same time as they didn't want the vote to fail because they didn't want to go to election, again, save the Bloc Québécois, all of the parties wanted to have their ducks in a row. The Liberals wanted to make sure that everybody was in place, everybody was there to vote with the government, and the Conservatives and the NDP both wanted to show their opposition to the government, even though they wanted to go through. So this requires, making the whips, the House leaders making sure that everybody's in the right place at the right time, everybody's able to vote, because I think as much as this was a test of the government, as every budget vote is going to be, it was a test of Pierre Poilievre too. Like, if he had a bunch of abstentions, that would not have been good for his leadership prospects right now. They needed to make sure that everybody was in their seat, whether physically or virtually. And so that would have been, there would have been some coordination there.
Okay. Professor Turnbull, I kind of want to circle back to something here and get you and Professor Bratt's thoughts on this. Why wouldn't the Liberals want an election? They have a very weak NDP that is dealing with its own internal party drama. Their leader is way more popular, as we'll talk about later, than the leader of the opposition right now. If the budget goes down to defeat, they could engineer that themselves. Of course, if the budget goes down to defeat, that maybe they have a pretty good chance at winning the majority that they didn't win in late April. Why wouldn't the Liberals want an election?
I can think of three reasons. Okay. One thing is that the situation around Trump, the major projects, there's a lot of hypothetical, there's a lot of potential, I think, to this government that hasn't been realized yet. And I don't know that Mark Carney and the Liberals want to go back and ask people to vote again when they can't put any major projects up in the window to say they're designated national interest. They don't have a deal with the U.S. So I'm not sure they want to play that card. Second, if the election was a referendum on Mark Carney versus Pierre Poilievre, well, sure, the Liberals would want to take those on. But elections aren't referenda on the leaders, right? It's you get into the ridings, you get into the issues. They're 36 days long. A bunch of crap can happen. So I don't think the Liberals wanted to take that risk necessarily. And the third reason is that 2 elections in a year, yick. It is hard to go to your volunteers, to your funders, and say, yeah, we'd love for you guys to come out and lift up another election for us. It's really a big ask. And so I don't think any political party, frankly, would want to do that.
You agree with that, Professor Bratt?
I do, and I would just add that Mark Carney, I think, is more focused on governing than campaigning. It was sometimes painful to watch him campaign. I think he's much happier where he is right now, and why risk that in an election? Anything can happen. I think back to the famous time in '79 when Joe Clark went down to defeat, and the Conservatives were convinced that they were going to win a majority government. The Liberals didn't have a leader, and so let's go back to the voters. And instead, the Liberals, Trudeau comes back out of retirement, and they win a majority government, and they're sitting on the back benches for 4 years. So anything can happen in an election campaign. It is quite risky. We saw that in 2021. The Liberals pulled the plug early, thinking they could go from a minority to a majority, and they ended up with almost the exact same amount of seats that they did prior. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. When we come back, now what? Now what for the Prime Minister and his government? He has passed his budget. He's now released 2 lists of major projects. And there are mere weeks left in this House of Commons period. What's next for the government? What are the priorities now for the government? When we come back on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Tuesday Newsday political panel with the professors this week. Duane Bratt from Mount Royal University, Laurie Turnbull from Dalhousie University in Halifax. So, Professor Turnbull, we've had the budget has passed now, off to committee with that eventually, and 2 lists of major projects have been released. What other boxes does the Carney government want to tick off between now and the end of the year, do you think?
I mean, between now and the end of the year, I don't know. I mean, they're going to still, I think, be doing some work on selling the budget. He's certainly going to be out there pushing his agenda around diversifying our trade partnerships and making us more economically self-reliant. And so to that end, the Prime Minister is leaving today. I've probably left already on getting over to the G20, going to the UAE to work on those pieces that, again, are not about Parliament. That's about him trying to make sure that he makes good on his promises of making us less reliant on the U.S. But what's actually going to happen between now and the end of the year, I'm not sure about that. They've got a couple of other pieces of legislation in the window, but I don't know that anything else major passes between now and then.
Okay, so you wouldn't expect any kind of, because the premiers were sounding optimistic about some kind of tariff relief following their meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister. Are you anticipating anything forthcoming on the Trump situation, Professor Turnbull?
Not really. Not in the immediate future.
No.
I don't know if there's any reason we would think there would be. I mean, maybe the Prime Minister will decide some kind of aid packages that are going to go to industries in Canada who are deeply affected by the tariffs. I heard something on the radio this morning about, some sort of gas for wine situation between us and South Africa, but Trump, I don't think so.
Okay. No. Okay. What do you see as maybe other boxes to tick off between now and the end of the year for this government, Professor Bratt?
I think the wide-ranging MOU between the Alberta government and the federal government over energy laws and pipeline access. This was supposed to have been done before the Grey Cup, and in fact, both Carney and Smith at various times even talked about having a pipeline as one of the tranches to the Major Projects Office before the Grey Cup. Neither of those has happened. Both remain optimistic, but there's a lot of details in there. Premier Smith has outlined what she keeps calling the 9 bad bills and gave Carney 6 months to deal with them. He has dealt with some of them, whether that is the emissions cap in the oil sands, the delay around electric vehicle mandates, the greenwashing bill around energy companies, but nothing on pipelines. There is no proponent. The Alberta government is claiming they're the proponent, but no private sector interest. But this is a really big issue here in the province to have some sort of agreement.
Okay, interesting. Well, it's been said that minority governments have a lifespan 18 to 24 months. First of all, Professor, is that true nowadays? Do you think that's true, even true nowadays, 18 to 24 months?
I think that the relationship between the Liberals and the NDP that we saw in the last Parliament, that kind of changed that math, because once there was that agreement of confidence and supply, the NDP were basically in for what the Liberals wanted to do. And they, there was really no big risk that the Liberals were going to lose confidence. But it's possible, because that's come to an end, that maybe we are going to go back to a period of 18 to 24 months. If you like, it doesn't feel like this Parliament's going to last for 4 years. Some people say it will, but the feeling on the Hill, the kind of apprehensiveness around everything, it's not particularly solid. I think that's one of the reasons that we ended up in a bunch of hype over this budget, is just because there's this kind of feeling of temporariness, if that's a word, when it comes to this Parliament.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, the government's about 8 months old. How long do you give it, Professor Bratt? I mean, 10 to 16 months, something like that?
I think it's going to depend on Pierre Poilievre. I think if he wins, and win is always up to interpretation, his leadership review in January, then I think the clock is ticking. But if he loses and steps down, that will distract the Conservatives for a significant amount of time while they find a new leader. So I would expect that we would be probably in the polls within a year, possibly around next year's budget, unless there is a change in the Conservative leadership. And that's just the pattern. I agree with Laurie that the Trudeau government from 2021 to 2025 was an anomaly. You go back to every minority government, lasting 2 years was extraordinary, and it was the norm.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about Pierre Poilievre and what's ahead for him. There's some new data out from the Angus Reid Institute about that. Very strong support among Conservatives. His problem is it's only Conservatives. When we come back, this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Professors Bratt and Turnbull today, Tuesday Newsday political panel. So a new survey data out from Angus Reid Institute. Pierre Poilievre's favorability score, 34%, meaning his unfavorable rate is 60%. Giving him a net score of negative 26, the worst since he took over the leadership of the Conservative Party. However, among Conservatives, 78% have a favorable view of Poilievre, 78%. Well, then, wait, there's more. 77% of those who vote a Liberal have a very unfavorable view of Poilievre. 81% of past NDP voters have an unfavorable view, very unfavorable view, and 62% of past BQ voters. Why do you think, Professor Turnbull, there's such a chasm in public opinion with Poilievre where Conservatives really like him, but almost nobody else does?
Well, I mean, I think there's a few reasons for that, honestly. I think some of it is about the way that Pierre Poilievre has chosen to communicate, honestly. Not everybody likes his style. That's been an issue for a while. I think when he became leader, they kind of tried to do some image management. We saw him change his physical appearance, things like that, and appear in commercials with his family, which I think was all an effort to try to soften his image and make him a bit more attractive to other voters. But the other thing is now Pierre Poilievre is running against not Trudeau, but Carney. And Carney is a Liberal, but he's also kind of a progressive conservative in a way, right? Like he's not wearing that jersey, and there is no progressive conservative party anymore. But he's somebody who might appeal more to centrist voters who are looking for fiscal guardrails and things like that. Like Pierre Poilievre is not the only game in town for someone who leads towards fiscal responsibility.
Professor Bratt, what do you think about the divide, if you will, between Conservatives and everyone else?
And that's a real challenge that Poilievre has, because in an election, everybody gets to vote, not just members of your own party. And he is facing an own party review in a couple months. But I wonder how many of those are looking looking at his standing outside the party. And electability is always a key factor when you're deciding how to vote, whether in a leadership race or in a review. Poilievre had huge numbers against Trudeau, but most of that was unease with Trudeau, not personal popularity with Poilievre. And Carney doesn't have that huge undesirables. And even within his own party, you had a floor crossing. You had one that resigned but didn't cross the floor, and there's still some murkiness about what actually went on with Matt Genereux. He was one of the abstentions yesterday. And there has been some discontent within the Conservative movement over Poilievre. We saw that during the election campaign, and that has continued to this day. He has a strong base of support within the party. There is no doubt about that. But are there ones getting anxious going, can this guy win a general election?
But anxious enough to jeopardize his fortunes in Calgary in late January at a leadership review?
If there was someone waiting in the wings, ready to jump in, I think that would matter a lot more. There isn't, and it really depends on what win means. I mean, this is being stage managed very carefully, right? There is a reason that it is in Calgary, that they're having the leadership review. So we will stay tuned, as they say.
Stay tuned. Okay. Do you think his leadership of this party is in any way in jeopardy, Professor Turnbull?
Yeah, I do actually. Not because of the leadership review, for all of the reasons that Duane says, right? Like, this is absolutely being managed. If he makes it until then, I think that the result that he gets in that room is probably going to be very favorable to him. But I think he's not out of the woods in terms of questions of winnability. People want the leader to win. You can get away with all kinds of crap if it looks like you're going to win. And he was. Okay. Right? Like, his style was acceptable to people enough when he looked like he was going to win, but now he doesn't.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Great to hear from both of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laurie.
Professor Bratt in Calgary, Mount Royal University in Halifax, Professor Turnbull from Dalhousie. Talkback. We are going to talk about healthcare coming up on Talkback right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, private healthcare. Private healthcare. I'm going to do a poll today. Keep track of your answers. Here's what we want to ask you. Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public health care and private health care? Is that something that you're against, or would you be supportive of that? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. The idea of Canada having a publicly funded healthcare system and at the same time letting Canadians buy healthcare services for a fee out of their own pocket. Where do you stand on that very idea? We have talked about this before, but I think it's important that we talk about it again today because according to a report in the news media today, this country is about to enter uncharted territory. To report in the Globe and Mail today, and according to that news report, the Alberta government is going to allow doctors to work in that province's public healthcare system, obviously funded through taxes, but at the same time, those doctors would be allowed to work in what the newspaper is calling a parallel private market. And according to the report, it's something that has never been done in Canada before, never been seen in Canada before. Quote, no other Canadian province allows doctors to offer care under both systems at the same time, which of course is not to say there isn't private healthcare in this country already. We've seen private clinics springing up all over the place. The difference is, this is a bombshell news report, by the way, it really is. The difference is in Alberta, if these reforms go forward, Alberta would have what's being described as a hybrid healthcare system. There would be doctors who would not only work in the public healthcare system, they would also work in the private healthcare system, i.e., for-profit healthcare. What do you think of that idea? What's usually been happening is if a doctor, say, wants to open a private clinic, work in a private clinic, they opt out of the public healthcare system. They have to. That's actually very popular where I am, in Quebec, where hundreds and hundreds of doctors have just said, goodbye, public healthcare system. We're going private. We're going to work for private healthcare instead, under this new Alberta model that is under consideration at the moment. It's not the law just yet, but they're thinking about it, seriously thinking about it. A doctor could pick and choose what services they would offer in the public healthcare system, what services they would offer in some kind of private clinical practice. It's not an all-encompassing either-or decision. A doctor wouldn't have to be all the way in the public healthcare system or all the way out of the public healthcare system. Very important story. Not just an Alberta story. Alberta may have a conservative government, but lots of provinces have conservative governments these days. Most of the provincial governments are conservative to some degree or another. And no matter which province people live in, provincial governments all across the country, they're all facing the same situation. And that's how to fix healthcare and how to pay for healthcare without breaking the backs of taxpayers. So it would appear this is what they're thinking of doing in Alberta, allowing doctors to bounce back and forth between the traditional publicly funded healthcare system and a parallel private market for healthcare services, which is sure to reignite an age-old debate in this country whether this should even be allowed in Canada. Whether this is the Canadian way. The Canadian way that many people still feel about passionately is that every Canadian has access to health care, no matter their background, social standing, size of their bank account. Everyone gets the same health care. Universal, publicly funded, which sounds great. The concern, and it's raised in this news article, is that with more and more private healthcare options becoming available, more affluent Canadians will get better healthcare, more immediate healthcare. And the public healthcare system will be starved of resources, which will only make matters worse for the private healthcare system. Shortage of doctors, wait times grow longer, and that will just drive more demand for even more private healthcare. And the warning is, it's another sign of the beginning of the end of Canadian Medicare. What do you think? What's your opinion? We want to keep track of your answers today. Just see if there's any kind of trend that emerges one way or the other by the end of the show. So again, our question is, do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of public health care and private health care? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. 1-833-668-2577. And let's talk about healthcare today and whether Canadians should be allowed to buy healthcare or whether doctors should be allowed to sell it for a fee. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback. And this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
According to a major news report today, the province of Alberta will allow doctors to work in the public healthcare system and in a parallel private healthcare market. Private healthcare. We're asking if you support or are opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare, a mixed healthcare system in this country. We're tracking your answers as well. 1-833-668-2577. That means I'm just writing down whether you supported or opposed it, by the way. Nothing more than that. Regal, Mountain View County, Alberta. Hi there. What's your opinion?
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Yes.
Okay. First of all, I am most opposed to Alberta allowing this type of system to even enter their minds. I don't understand, but let me continue. Number one, having a choice between public and private relies heavily on affordability, number one. Number two, things have changed. There's no doubt about it. The mighty dollar is extremely important, more important than it was, I would have to say, from the time I was aware of it till now. It's the buck, it's the buck, it's the buck. And what I am thinking about is, why don't the doctors in public systems jump into these private? Not unless they are truly altruistic. What's going to happen about getting new doctors? Where are they going to go? I am just completely opposed, and I am appalled at what has been happening here in this province.
So part of your, if I could, part of your, or maybe even most of your opposition is because you do think people with more money will get better health care? Is that the basics of it?
Basically, yes. Now,
yes,
what about
okay. Fair enough.
those who cannot afford to pay? That is why this healthcare system was instituted in the first place. Access to everyone, not the chosen few. There's something I need to add here, all right?
Sure.
So much of our money here in Alberta is being wasted on studies and panels and this and that and the other. And our healthcare system here in Alberta, healthcare availability is choking to death, as opposed to investing in what we have, continuously trying to undermine it. I wonder what the ultimate goal is. Also, perhaps we should pay tax rates of 50% like they do in Scandinavia.
Well, some people would challenge you and say we're already paying tax rates of 50%. Our phone lines are very busy today, Regal. I thank you for your call. Very passionate opposition there to private delivery of health care. Worries about the affluent getting better health care. Fair point. John in Kitchener. John. Hi, John.
It's Joe.
Joe. Hi, Joe. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Yeah,
hey.
Fair enough.
Private health care is alive and well in Canada. Has been for quite some time. I've been in it for got to be close to a decade. And if we get rid of the public health care altogether, can't happen soon enough. Good riddance. It's the government can't organize a one-car funeral, and you want them to run an entire healthcare system. Not happening. It's not working, people. We need private health care. Bottom line. Is there anything you want to know about private health care? Because I'll tell you what, I don't wait in lines. I pay my money, and I'm happy to pay more. In fact, I want to pay for a private hospital with an emergency room, so I don't have to line up with every Tom, Dick, and Harry out the door who's got a hangnail and not a family doctor. It's not just me. I could say, is it just me? But I know it's not just me. So I'm all for private health care.
What about people who say don't have your kind of money, who can't afford the kind of health care that you can buy?
Get smarter.
Work harder.
Get smarter.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's say somebody who has worked hard their whole life, has paid taxes their whole life, but they're injured and they're disabled and they're on a limited income now. What about that person? You just leave them in the street?
Well, everybody's got a credit card and everybody's got a line of credit. Like it costs.
Not everybody does.
An MRI.
Not everybody does.
I can get an MRI in Buffalo for $600. What's your life worth? Waiting 6 months before you die, or are you gonna, go and borrow that $600, get that MRI. What are you going to do?
So, all right. Okay. I mean, Joe, and I've had this conversation with you before. It kind of sounds like everyone's for themselves, every person for themselves.
Well,
in your view of the
today,
world.
Isn't that what today is all about?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. He wholeheartedly supports it. So there you go. Could you have two more opposite views on this issue as we ask, do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare? Joe thinks it should all be private. Regal thinks it should all be public. What do you think? On a mixed system, maybe we can get Joe and Regal down and have a few drinks and end up somewhere in the middle. What are the chances? 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare? Ken in Cochrane. Hello, Ken. You're up next. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Ken. What's your opinion?
Well, if anybody thinks that we don't already have a two-tiered system, they've got rocks in their head. We already have a two-tiered system. I've got friends here that have traveled to Ontario to have a hip redone. That's from Alberta. I've got other friends that have traveled to different parts of the country and had different procedures done. I can have an MRI done here in Calgary and pay for it. We've already got a two-tiered system. And what I think the government of Alberta, and basically, I'm commenting on a story that I don't really have many details on, and so are the rest of us. That news story that you're quoting, basically, we've got the headline and nothing else, no details. But if the provincial government in Alberta is able to retain and attract doctors where they can earn maybe a little bit more money, and stay here in Canada, we won't have the degree of doctors, escaping and fleeing to the U.S., although in recent times that seems to be reversing a little bit. But I really do think that we need to, retain our healthcare practitioners. We can do that by saying, okay, well, most of your practice, you've got to have X number of hours in the public healthcare system. You can only bill X number of hours out of the public healthcare system in a private system, and they can safeguard the system that way. So
okay.
I'm for it. I'm for it, but it has to be.
Okay.
It has to be formalized, and you're asking us to answer a question where we don't have all the details. But generally speaking.
Well, I don't think you really need the exact details, and I only have limited time, so I'm not going to come on the radio and read you an entire report from the Globe and Mail on my radio show. If you want to read it, you can go pick up a copy of the Globe and Mail. What I'm asking is, okay, generally speaking, what if we had a mixed system?
Generally speaking, as long as I'd say the vast majority of a doctor's billable hours are in the public system, and a smaller portion, is in the private system. That's fine. We've got nurse practitioners now here that are doing what doctors have traditionally done. So I think there's room for it, and I think this will actually, in some ways, take some of the pressure off the public healthcare system and maybe speed up some of these wait times as well. That's what I'm hopeful.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not going to bring another caller on because you'd only have 30 seconds. I want to give you more time than that. It can be a complicated matter, of course. But what we are asking, again, major news report today. You can read it. It's in the Globe and Mail. It's an exclusive in the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail has basically draft legislation from the Smith government. The Smith government is thinking about going down this road. Maybe other provincial governments are exploring the idea as well. Alberta seems a little farther along, certainly, but it would allow doctors to work in the public healthcare system and at the same time in what the paper calls a parallel private healthcare market. So you would have, at least in one Canadian province, a mixed healthcare system. Public and private, doctors working in both. Support or opposed, for or against. After the news. The latest breaking news coming up next on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare, a mixed healthcare system in this country? What do you think about that idea? Let's go to Halifax today. Reef is in Halifax. Hi there. What's your opinion?
Hi. Well, I certainly don't approve of it's just a solely private system, but I kind of agree with Tom. We already have private clinics where you can get surgery and knee and
okay.
So we kind of are in a bit of a mix now. My kind of point is, if wouldn't it make sense that if you're taking people out of the public system, if they go to the private system, they can afford to go to another. Doesn't that remove them from the private system and open up more spots for people that are in the private system? As long as the funding, the transfers from the federal government stay the same, the public system would remain the same. And if you, let's say you remove 20,000 people and they go somewhere else, then that opens up more spots in the public system. Does that not compute?
It computes for me. The concern is that more healthcare resources, like staff, for example, would opt to operate more in the private healthcare system than the public healthcare system. So it would lead to a deterioration in the quality of healthcare you get in the public system, and it becomes this kind of vicious cycle. Public healthcare deteriorates, starved of resources. People say, well, this public healthcare system is no good. I might as well pay out of pocket and go the private route.
I understand.
That's the concern that's often raised, sir. I'm just, yes.
But if the public system, it remains full, the same funding that we have, if those doctors leave that system, then eventually they would get replaced. Doctors and nurses and lab technicians, and they would replace them. So there must be systems in the world that they can look at that to see what actually happens. But I certainly don't want to go down the road of the United States. That's absolutely horrendous. That's why I don't want to go to a strictly private system. So a mix of both would be fine.
Mix of both is fine. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you for your call from Halifax today. To Arlene, up next is in Calgary. Hi, Arlene.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Arlene. What's your opinion?
This morning. Well, my opinion is a two-tiered system. I base that on 40 years in healthcare, and I remember talking to Preston many years ago, and I said, couldn't we improve our system with a two-tiered system? And he said, Arlene, it would be political suicide. Anyway, I believe that was true at that time, but I think things have changed markedly. And I think a two-tiered system is alive and well. People are paying for hips and knees in other provinces. And I think that our public system can thrive very well. It is right now. People who can afford to have their done and all that are getting it done, and it frees up spaces. The other thing, Rob, the other options to care these days, and all of this has to be integrated, like our nursing practitioners are alive and well, our midwives are alive and well. This is operating very well in Calgary in terms of primary health care and midwives. And all of this, it's an integration of change. And a change is many ways of delivering care, is what I believe.
Okay, what would you say? Because I suspect if this does reignite this debate of what you call two-tiered healthcare, some people might say that's not the Canadian way. That's not what we should be doing in Canada. It's not what the Canadian healthcare system was supposed to be. What would you say to that?
I guess I would say that things change.
Things change. Okay.
Things change. There's so many alternative ways, and populations have increased. We've got lineups, all of this. There's got to be different ways to access health care. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Arlene. All right. Not many opposed to the idea right now. Let's go to Bob up next. Hello, Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm very good, Bob. What's your opinion on the topic today?
So I totally agree with it. This has been happening in Europe for decades, and it's worked really well. I mean, we already have a two-tier system. People go, and I have friends that have gone Quebec and wherever to get their knees replaced and hips. This makes no difference. It actually helps the system. It has helped the system in Britain. Without it, the National Health Service in Britain would have collapsed, and other European countries.
Okay, what about people who don't have means? You know, people who can't go to, as you say, you know, go to Quebec for a private surgery or what have you. What about those people? What happens to those people?
Well, they'll still get their surgery and what have you. They just won't get it instantly.
Right. Okay.
It's like all of us at the moment.
Right.
We can all go. We've already got a two-tier system. And, you know, if you can't afford to go and have it privately, you wait and you get it done on the Alberta system, as we have.
Right.
But,
again, I come back to this. What about this idea, this kind of Canadian ideal, you know, no matter who you are, where you live, your family upbringing, who your parents are, your last name, the size of your bank account. In this country, we're supposed to have Medicare, and it shouldn't matter the size of your bank account. What about that? Doesn't that mean anything?
We have the same as in Britain. They have the National Health Service, the same as our Canadian Medicare. And it helps the Canadian system by having alternatives because it frees up space, like a lot of other of your callers have said. There isn't really a downside to this. As long, I agree with one caller that said the doctors have to perform 50% of their time in the public sector before they can do the private sector. And that's fine. It puts the backstop in place.
Okay. I'm just providing the counter argument that I think you're going to hear from those who would say, because it's been said before, in Canada, you don't need a credit card. All you need is a health card. It shouldn't matter if you're unemployed or a billionaire. You'll be treated the same. That's the idea of Canadian healthcare. That's Medicare. Okay?
You will be, but you're going to, if you've got money...
But you'll wait. You'll wait, right? Well, how is that equal access to healthcare? If somebody with money in the bank gets faster healthcare.
If you've got money, you're going to go abroad and get the healthcare instantly.
Okay. Thank you. I hear you. Thank you. Be right back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Are you for or against having a mixed healthcare system in Canada, a mix of public healthcare and private healthcare? Where do you stand on that? To Kitchener. Annie's in Kitchener. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Rob. I'm going to tell you,
Annie.
I oppose the two-tier health system.
Okay, why is that?
Well, because it's just an experience. My cousins came from Australia to visit me a couple years ago at Christmas time, and they have the two-tier health system. So my cousin said if she wanted to get blood work, she had to pay $140, or she has to wait 3 months. So she paid the $140. Now it came out she needed an urologist. Her wait was either 4 years or $980 to get to see a neurologist, and she got in 2 months. This is ludicrous. And when she came to Canada, they both ended up with COVID and had to go to St. Michael's Hospital. And they got insurance. And she said, Canada was so good to them at that hospital. Say, you don't have to pay. We will forward the bill to Australia. This is what Canada does. We need to. Rich people are going to be ahead of everybody like they are there, and I totally opposed to it. All the
You're
doctors
totally
are
opposed to
going
it. Okay.
Totally, 100%. I think it should be equality for every equal Canadian.
Okay. All
and
right.
I think it
Fair
will
enough.
destroy. It will end up going to the way of the U.S. if they get into that, because then it will go further and people will need to purchase insurance. People now are struggling. I don't know what's going to happen to the poor kids of tomorrow that are growing up. It's expensive enough. Let it be, and let everyone be equal as Canadians.
Okay, you're in the minority opinion today, Annie, but I thank you for your call. To Dave up next. Hi, Dave. Hi, Dave. You're on the air in Calgary. Dave?
Hello, Rob. Thank you
hi,
for
Dave.
having me on the air, please.
Yeah, you're welcome. What's your opinion?
I am for the two-tiered healthcare system. It's already in place. Suggestion for might help people is let's assess two charges on the private sector, 20%, and hire a bunch of doctors and nurses, and 5%, and that would go to medication for the lowest income of our society. And if you stand on the side where you say, no way, public system or nothing, well, your wait times are going to increase and increase. And this way, the private sector is funding the public sector.
Okay, so these taxes, I'm just unclear what you mean. You want a 20% tax or 5%. Who are you taxing?
Well, the private healthcare system assess a 20% charge. That 20% extra charge on the private system, and that 20% would go towards hiring doctors and nurses, and add a second tier of 5%, and that would cover the medication, help with the cost of the medication for the people that are on the poverty line.
I see. So let's say, for example, I need a scan of my knee and it costs $500. You think there should be a 20% tax on the $500, for example?
Absolutely. I think so.
And
I think
another
it would appease a lot of the population.
I see. Okay. All right.
So I'd like to know your thoughts.
You would take whatever revenue is raised from that and you would plow it into the public healthcare system. All right.
Exactly.
But generally speaking, having a mix, you're not opposed to having a mix.
I think it's established already, and I think I will eventually have to seek medical attention. And because I'm in a financial position that I would use the private sector. I'd be perfectly willing to pay the extra 25%, knowing that my money's adding doctors and nurses and helping the lowest income.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for your call. More of your calls just ahead. If you're on the line, hang on the line. We'll fit you in before the top of the hour on having a mixed healthcare system in this country, which was once, it was sacrilegious to even suggest such a thing, that you would do that. What would Tommy Douglas think? Is he rolling over in his grave today as we discuss it? And so many people saying they endorse the idea. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577 here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Elaine in Calgary up next on a mixed healthcare system, a mix of public and private. Where do you stand on that, Elaine? Hi, Elaine.
Actually.
Elaine?
Hello?
Hi, Elaine. I need you to speak up, please. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Elaine. What's your opinion,
Okay,
please?
perfect. I'm against that.
Okay.
First of all, what I don't understand is why all the premier are not getting together, looking at the system of the different provinces in Canada and decide how they can do better. Because Premier Smith saying that the 2 tiers like this is the first in Canada is wrong. It's not correct. In Quebec, and I used to be in Quebec, there's private, like the specialist, for example. There's also private doctors that do only private, and there's also private and public doctor. So some doctors do both, private and public. 30% of their caseload can be public. So this, in my book, is 2 tiers. So I'm not sure why Premier thinks that she's innovating here. So anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is what I heard, like John Joe talk, or this other gentleman. Like, I'm a social worker. I do have money to pay for private. However, a lot of my clients are unable to do that. They won't be able to do that. We have right now a crisis with nurses and doctors. I'm not sure if it's because we can't pay them or if because they're not available. There's not enough people. So if it's the latter, and there's not enough nurses or doctor anyway, it doesn't matter that you're going private. Like, you're not going to, when people say, oh, well, we can hire more if we tax the private, or we can hire more if we do this or that. If there's not enough in terms of numbers, then we don't hire, right?
Okay, Elaine, a popular opinion today, and I'd like to run it by you since you are opposed to this. A popular opinion has been, well, look, if you let an affluent person opt for private health care, then that will free up space. It will take strain off the public healthcare system. It's been a very popular opinion today. What do you think of that?
My fear about that is that the doctors that are right now public goes private. And I do understand that it would cost them quite a bit, because opening a private clinic and having staff and all this is more expensive for doctor, I think, than staying in the public system. I'm not sure about what I'm saying right now, though, because I haven't, looked at the numbers. But that's my fear. My fear is that we're going to lose the doctor that we have in public, like it happened in Quebec, actually. And then the waiting list, because less doctors are in public, the waiting list is longer. And then my brother, for example, his doctor was public. He went into private, completely private. And so my brother pays.
I mean, you can imagine the Globe and Mail, again, we're working from a report that's in the Globe and Mail newspaper today, says in Quebec, since it's gone and embraced the private delivery of healthcare, 600 doctors have left the public healthcare system. They're not in the public healthcare system anymore.
There you go.
Now, they're not. They may not all be family doctors, but imagine if they were all family doctors with 5,000 patients each. That's 30,000 patients or so, right? So, it's a big story. Thank you, Elaine. You're in the minority as we end hour number 1. We'll pick it up in the second hour, though, on healthcare on Talkback.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We're talking about healthcare today, private healthcare. There's a major news report that says the province of Alberta will allow doctors to work in its public healthcare system and in a parallel private healthcare market. Do you support or oppose something like that? A mix of public healthcare and private healthcare, a mixed healthcare system in this country. What's your opinion? 1-833-668-2577 as we begin hour number 2 of Talkback with David up next in Calgary. Hello, David.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
Very good, David. Thank you. Yeah. What's
so
your opinion?
I'm a family doc I'm a family doctor. This is a brutal thing for the Alberta government to be doing. It's anti-business. It's going to damage our economy. It's going to make people poorer. It's going to delay care. It's going to wreck our labor market. Like private care, every research I've seen has shown that the things that you've raised, and I'm really impressed, by the way, you've done an outstanding job of raising these questions to people who are calling and supporting private care. It absolutely, the only people who do well are two groups: people who have a lot of cash and can therefore get the care they need, when they want it, and the people who have equity stakes in companies running private care. Everybody else is worse off because it does shift human resource power out of the public system into the private system. But even those people in the private system don't actually get good care. The care on average, and the research that I've seen shows that the care on average, when it's privately delivered, is actually worse because they cherry pick patients, they upsell people, they cut corners. I mean, in my own health journey, I've had to, a couple of times, had to access a privately delivered healthcare service because it wasn't available at all in the public system. And I was being discharged with 5 new medications, and the person telling me was an administrative assistant who was great at her job as administrative assistant. But there's no way you should have somebody telling a patient about new medications that they have to take and have that person not be a healthcare provider. You know, I had to actually ask and beg, can a nurse talk to me about these medications and so on? So the research is clear. Private healthcare only helps two groups: people who can pay a whole bunch extra and the people who own those companies. I mean, we had the most efficient healthcare system in the world. Alberta Health Services had only a 4% administrative cost. That's an unparalleled number, as I understand it, anywhere in the world. And of course, it's been restructured now, and we've lost all those efficiencies. But a private system takes up about 40% of the costs are in administration. So why in the world would you replace a healthcare system that's 4%, that's efficient, so businesses don't have to be paying for all these extra health insurance costs and so on, you know, for their employees and so on? Like, why in the world would you replace a really efficient healthcare system with one that's inefficient, that just takes money out of the economy, increases the cost of living for anybody if they do have to somehow scrape and find the money to go to the private system? Why would you do this? It makes no sense unless you just dogmatically feel that, you know, no, we don't have
again, a popular opinion in the last hour was if you allow people with the means to access their own health care for a fee, then the public system will actually be better off. There will be more resources available in the public healthcare system. There would be less strain on the public healthcare system. What do you think of that?
So, yeah, that's what people have said for decades.
Yes.
And the research shows it's not true. Because what happens is we only have a certain number of doctors, a certain number of nurses. And when those people then are working in other jurisdictions, like other private spaces, you don't have the bodies. So the wait list in the public systems go up when you bring in private care because there's just not enough healthcare providers. And we can't just crank people out. Like I'm actually a professor of family medicine at the Cummings School of Medicine, University of Calgary. We can't just ramp up tomorrow and crank out more doctors. You know, that's a large, complex process. So that's a fiction that people, I think, like to think. And I get it. We're in a system right now where we're struggling. People need access.
Let me introduce one other argument. Let me just introduce one other argument. Okay. They have this kind of system, public healthcare, parallel private system, in countries all over the world, wealthy, high-income, liberal, democratic Western countries with very high standards of living. Germany, France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, Austria, Luxembourg, Japan, South Korea, all to varying degrees have universal health care that's publicly funded, and at the same time they have private options. Why can't we have that in Canada?
Well, I guess it goes to the question of, what do we want? Do we want a society where actually we have low costs, at the lowest cost, everybody thrives? If that's what we want, then let's just go there. Public care is efficient. It means that people aren't delayed and waiting. What we need, figure out our tax structures, and actually the most important thing is how we save money is investing in primary care. So that's the key problem. This is why we've had exploding costs and so on. What we need to do is invest in primary care, family docs, nurse practitioners, public health nurses, vaccinations. We need to be doing outreach on vaccinations, so on prevent disease.
Okay.
That's how you get a really efficient model that saves business money and protects our labor force.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Very, very thorough start to hour number 2. But time for another one. Chris in Halifax. Chris is in Halifax, yes. Hi, Chris. Thanks for waiting. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Well, your last caller made some very good points, but obviously he's not dealt with the Nova Scotia healthcare system, which once you're in it is very, very good. It's very efficient, it's quick, it's very good. But the problem is getting into that system, like jumping on that moving wheel. It's difficult to get there. I agree with the 2-tier system. I've used the 2-tier system. I had a procedure done about 2 years ago that I would have had to wait at least a year to get done here. And it only cost me $400 plus the HST of $60. And I had it done within 14 days of calling the clinic. So I'm not one of the wealthy people, loads of cash like the other guy just suggested, but I was able to do that. And for the sake of $460, yeah, I'd do it. But the people leaving the healthcare system and joining the private, I think people are missing one point on that. Yeah, there'd be less doctors and nurses and so on and professionals left in the public system, but there'd also be less patients to deal with in that system because these private people are going to be taking a lot of patients with them, right? And you mentioned earlier about equal access, and that's something that here in Canada we want to think that we have equal access. Well, we don't have equal access to lots of things. Housing, food, dental procedures, clothing, automobiles, travel, education, and the list goes on and on. The more money you have, the more access you have to more of those things and better quality of those things. You agree or not?
Oh, I would agree with you. I would certainly agree with you. Yeah. On that.
Yeah. So we don't have equal access now, and it's obviously our current system is not working well, so we do have to look at alternatives. And I think the 2-tier system like Danielle Smith is proposing, I agree with more because to allow the doctors to not totally pull away from the public system, but to blend themselves to work in both systems. And even as far as that goes, the existing public system could incorporate a copay system for someone. I wouldn't mind to go see my doctor if I had to pay $10 or $20 or whatever to go see him to augment the money he gets from the government.
Okay, thank you. Just like that, off and running on healthcare today. Hot topic today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare? Private, for-profit, show me the money healthcare in this country. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. George is up next in Calgary. Hi, George.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Rob?
George. I hear you just fine, George. What's your opinion?
I'm. A lot of the people have made these comments already, but I'm sort of for the mixed, tiered. Even though after what the doctor had mentioned in the conversation there, but there's caveats to this. And I do research. I follow healthcare, but that's not my research area. But I always like numbers. And Dr. Lee had mentioned Sweden and Germany. So if you just a couple of 30 seconds here. So you're first off, we have to look at life expectancy. So you got Sweden, I'm giving high ends here, 84 years, Canada's 82 years, Germany's 81 years, and USA is 79. This is the one that we have to sort of look at is the doctors per 100,000 people. And right now, Sweden's 4.5, Germany's 4.5, the OECD, which is everybody, is 3.9, and Canada's sitting at 2.7. And finally, the health spending per for the government per person, U.S. is 12,500, Germany, Sweden's 8,000 at the high end, and Canada's 8,100 at the high end. So the point I wanted to get is the guardrails here. If we're going to be going to this private public thing. Doctors, and I think one of these other people mentioned that as well, doctors have to have a public service obligations. We have to have minimum public capacity in the private facilities, protection of rural and primary care access, and transparent, and this is going to be the tough one, transparent reporting on wait times on the floors is what we sort of look at. And just to touch on that, like a lot of people have talked about this already. 30 years ago, I have looked at to get some surgery, and I remember the doctor saying, it was a specialist, saying, I can do the surgery in a month if you pay. It'll take you 10 months for us to see it. So I don't know how they were doing it 30 years ago, but they were already doing that. So that sort of just gives you some numbers from what I quickly researched on that.
Very good information. But generally speaking, you're supportive of a mixed system, as you say, with caveats.
Yeah, and that's following the Germany and Sweden follow. They have a system called the PHI, Germany, and SHI, and that's which is private health insurance, and then this sickness health insurance is the Germany one.
Okay,
and doctors are, I want to call it forced, but they are forced to do public service, and then there has to be some sort of thing along that line.
Forced, obligated. Okay, George, very interesting. Let's go to Jay is up next in Kitchener. Jay, hello, Jay. Hi, Jay. All right, let's try Fred up next then. Hi, Fred, are you there?
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
Very good, Fred. Thank you. What's your opinion? A mixed healthcare system.
My opinion is, I think it's all right as it is now. I've gone to have knee surgery and stuff. Had to go to, not pay myself, but for some reason it's you go in a strip mall and have it done. And the system they got going now is good. They just got to improve it. But the thing today is it struck me is, you know, now we know the rest of the story. Between the contracts at the hospitals and the, you know, I'm thinking this here today, you know, that hot dog and bacon wrapped scallops at the hockey games in the big box for Daniel Smith sure paid off. You know, like this doesn't seem right. It seems like whatever, everything that she said that she wasn't doing, she's now doing. And I have no idea who she's consultant because she's definitely not talking to the people. She really isn't. I mean, it just comes out of the blue. Oh, we're going to private health care. And that's what it is. That's what she's headed for.
Mixed healthcare, mixed healthcare system, the public healthcare system, according to a statement from the health minister's office from your province in the newspaper today, is that the public healthcare system would not be sacrificed, but that doctors would have the ability to work in both private healthcare and public healthcare. That's according to the report today.
The 51st state seems to be falling into place. That's what's scary. So I'll leave it at that, but that's something to think about.
Okay.
Add it all up, and she's bought and paid for.
Well, there seems to be support for what's being proposed. A lot of people say it's already here already. It's just kind of a recognition of reality. Is there not anything to that?
You got to bring it to the people. I mean, we're the ones
that bring it to the people.
In.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. Be right back. Talk back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you support or are you opposed to Canada having a mix of both public healthcare and private healthcare? Where do you stand on that? That's what we're asking on Talkback today. Jay in Kitchener. Hello, Jay. What's your opinion, Jay?
It's best to have a two-tier system.
Why do you say that, Jay?
Well, because in the long run, more people will be helped.
More people will be helped. Okay. Okay. You think it will serve more people more efficiently?
I think so, sir.
You think so?
I'm in a wheelchair myself, and I'm also
right. And you're blind, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I
would you be able to let me ask you, Jay, would you be able to afford private health care?
Well, sir, because of my disability, Ontario Disability Support Plan does support people who need the assistance. And so you do have, when you are disabled, you do have support that others don't have.
Right, right. But what if you wanted to pay for, a private scan or a private surgery or go to the doctor and pay money? Would you have the ability to do that? And if somebody else had the ability and you didn't, what would you think of that? Would that be unfair?
It is, because what happened to me happened when I was 8 months old. It's a possible medical complication because of I had a reaction to a needle when I was 8 months old. It affected me for the rest of my life. I'm in a wheelchair blind now. I some people can't speak, but I can't shut up.
Well, Jay, I'm glad you can't shut up, because you call me from time to time, and I appreciate your call. I'm surprised to hear that you're open to the idea, though. Let's go to Raj in Calgary. Raj, hi, Raj.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Hi. What's your opinion?
I'm in I'm kind of like on the other side of the this season. Like it shouldn't be like a two-tier system. The reason is because there might be other callers already mentioned a few things about that, but there is a one solid reason. I have seen a two-tier system in few countries, and I know very well about one country where they have two-tier system. They have public system where you go, and what most of the time doctor does is they're gonna see you at the public clinic, and they're gonna say, okay, yeah, that's good, and next time they're gonna say, oh, I don't have the appointment available, but you need to come after 2 weeks to see me or something like that. And then this is the way they're gonna push you to see him or her in her private clinic. So
you think there would be coercion? There would be coercion, right?
Yes.
That in the public system, it would be, well, I could see you, but it wouldn't be for another 6 months. But I have this private practice.
Yes, exactly.
And you could pay a fee, but I can get you in there next week, and that pressure would be put on. Right.
And the other is sometimes somebody can say looking or reading something, but I have gone through this process for 5 years. Our doctor was seeing us once in.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to get too personal, but I understand. That's why you're opposed to it. Fair enough.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Carrie Tate reports in the Globe and Mail today under the headline, Alberta plans to allow doctors to deliver public and private services. Quote, Alberta intends to allow physicians working in the province's public healthcare system to simultaneously offer services in a parallel private market, according to confidential draft legislation obtained by the Globe and Mail. The draft. Premier Danielle Smith's government has prepared draft amendments that would transform the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Act and establish a model for medicine unlike any in the country. No other Canadian province allows doctors to offer care under both systems at the same time. It goes on. Alberta's draft amendments would create 3 categories of physicians: those billing the public purse for their services, paid at rates set by the government; those setting their own rates and billing patients privately; and those toggling between the public and private systems. The third option is what makes Alberta's proposal unique. And then further down are kind of the nuts and bolts of it. A doctor working exclusively in the private realm or in both the public and private tracks must provide patients with certain information before providing healthcare services under the out-of-pocket system. The checklist includes the amount the patient will be charged, and an explanation that the patient, if eligible for the service under the public system, may receive the care at the government's expense from certain doctors. The patient must then agree in writing to the procedure and the price quoted by the doctor, as well as receipt of the information provided by the physician. Only then can the doctor provide care under the private system according to the draft amendments. The draft amendments would contain clauses that would give the government the power to restrict the types of services that doctors can offer under the private system in order to ensure adequate provision of publicly funded services. The draft amendments would also empower the government to establish the circumstances under which doctors can bill privately. It would prohibit the practice known as extra billing. Doctors' services paid for by the public system are not permitted to top up their revenue by charging the patient for the same care, according to the draft amendments, all in the Globe and Mail today. What do you think? Having a mix of both public and private healthcare in Canada. Where do you come down on that? Ryan is up next in Calgary. Thanks for waiting, Ryan. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Hey, Rob, thanks. First time calling. I'm for a blended system for sure.
Okay, and why?
I just wanted to share just a quick story of my daughter. She went in for a shoulder injury. She's in grade 11, playing rugby, injured her shoulder. And we went into the doctor, and the doctor had said, "Oh, well, you need to get an MRI to know what's wrong." And they basically said, "Do you want to pay for it, or do you want to go through the public system?" We said, "Well, let's do the public. Rather not pay for it. We're not paid money." So he said, "Well, we need to go get an X-ray done first, and then get an ultrasound done first before we can get the MRI." So we said, "Okay." We played the game, went over, got the X-ray done. The ultrasound done, got the results back. Turns out we needed to get an MRI. So we got on the list for the MRI. It had already been about 3 months. And, it's discretionary. So we opted to stick with the public system. And sure enough, we get her scheduled in, and it's over a year wait for the MRI. Now, she's in grade 11. If we wait a year, she's not going to be able to play rugby until halfway through grade 12, even if we can get it fixed by then. So we did end up going with a private MRI, and we were able to get her in about 3 weeks' time. So I'm grateful to have that opportunity for my daughter. Could we have survived without and waiting a year? Yes, but the private option was a great option for us.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Let's move along here. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to add something, go ahead. Oh, he hung up. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, Ryan. I apologize. Herman up next. Hi, Herman. What's your opinion here, Herman?
Hi, Rob. This? How you doing?
Hi, Herman. Very good, Herman. Thank you.
Good. Hey, Rob, I just kind of get a little clearance on what you're talking about today. When you say a two-tier, do you mean like these private places would still be getting money and subsidies from the government and stuff?
No. But they would have the ability to work in both the public healthcare system and in the private healthcare system. See, usually what happens is in provinces like Quebec where there is private healthcare, if you're going to work in private healthcare, you only work in private healthcare. That's it. You opt out. You say, "I'm done with public healthcare. Okay. I'm going to run a private clinic."
Okay, so based on that, yeah, for sure. You just can't have doctors going back and forth because it just creates a conflict of interest for them. Based on there's a Charter of Rights, Section 7. A doctor can't give preference to somebody who's paying compared to somebody who's on the public system. He'd be forfeiting my public security as a human being here in Canada. So he'd be opening up himself up from lawsuits. So
I would just come back to what the reporting is. Okay, what the reporting is in the newspaper. Yeah. It says you would have 3 categories of physicians. You would have those billing the public purse or their services at rates paid by the government. You would have those setting their own rates and billing patients privately, and those toggling between public and private.
Yeah, as long as I'm okay with the whole system, as long as I don't have to pay for anything for someone who is opting for a private system. I don't want my doctors working in both systems. I think it's correct that they have to opt out. I don't think they.
Okay, that's not what's being proposed. That's not what's being proposed in Alberta, and according to the report in the Globe and Mail, that's what makes Alberta unique. It would be the ability on Monday I'm going to work in the, whatever, I'm going to do rounds at the hospital, and on Tuesday I'm going to be running my private clinic.
Okay. All I know is I've been here since '96 in Alberta.
Yeah.
And the Conservative government has always been messing around with their healthcare, always trying to cut doctors, nurses, and this is just a prime example of what the Conservative government always wants. They always want to cut social programs for people who can't afford it. That's just a Conservative.
Okay, so you have concerns. So fair enough. You have concerns. Okay. Yep. Be right back. I'm going to put him down as being against it. Be right back, though, on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Where do you stand on having a mixed healthcare system in Canada? Mix of public healthcare and private for-profit healthcare, where you pay out of pocket for a healthcare service. 1-833-668-2577. Thomas up next in Longview. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, Thomas. Yeah, what's your opinion?
Yeah, well, it's just another way for the government to get its responsibility for the Medicare in the first place. It's just another way for them not to do what they're supposed to do, lessen their burden. They've been working on that for the past few years, ever since the last Conservative government got in, and it just is wrong. We have I've been around long enough that I remember Tommy Douglas, so let me tell you, and they put up a pretty good fight to get this in the first place. They should enjoy what they've got. A two-tiered system, that's the way it starts. You can take MEGA, that's Make Alberta Great Again group, for this nonsense. That's all I got to say.
Okay, and you have said it. This is the kind of the cultural argument, hearkening back to the days of Tommy Douglas, the former Saskatchewan premier, father of Medicare, and it's this idea. This is not the idea of Canadian healthcare. It's not what it's supposed to be. This is one of the things that makes us different from the Americans. You hear this all the time. And depending what happens with this Alberta situation, I would expect to hear more of the attitude that Thomas is saying. We don't want American style healthcare here. We don't want people going broke trying to pay hospital bills. Right, Thomas?
If they put the effort into the public sector like they're supposed to, we're short of hospitals, we're short of doctors. They've built a bunch of hospitals in the 60s and 70s in all the rural communities that were full service. They slowly migrated all the doctors into centers, thinking this is going to save money. It does not. It just overcrowded all of our emergency services throughout the province. So they're just looking for a way to have a less bill that they have to pay. That's all it really comes down to. Personally, I think we're better off when we all pay $100 a month for our health care, and we all got it. So, I'd pay $100 a month in a heartbeat.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call, Thomas. There's a reason Tommy Douglas is a Canadian icon, and when the CBC asked Canadians who's the greatest Canadian of all time, Tommy Douglas was the number one choice, father of Medicare. So it is one of the defining features of the country. So that's part of the reason why whenever this idea comes up, let people buy healthcare, let doctors sell healthcare, alarm bells, as you hear, start going off. Some people, it's the minority opinion today, but some people feel uncomfortable with the idea. They don't like the idea of, I guess allowing people to buy their way to the front of the line is how it would be seen. Well, everyone else has to wait. 1-833-668-2577. Tracy's in Waterloo, Ontario. Hello, Tracy.
Hi,
Tracy.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Tracy. What's your opinion?
Hi. I'm definitely in favor of the two-tier, and one of the reasons why is I think everybody believes that if somebody buys their way out of line, that's one person out of line. But the reality is it's probably closer to 4 people out of line, because the way our system works, if you have a disease or a symptom of something, you go in, you go your first appointment, then you get your x-ray, then you get your CAT scan, then you get your MRI, then you get your surgery. Those are all beds in hospitals and appointments and doctors that have been taken away. If you've got someone who's willing to, at the beginning of their ailment, find out what's wrong with them better faster, because it hasn't gotten to the chronic point now where they've been on painkillers for a year and walking funny, and now what could have been a simple surgery is turning into a hip replacement. Now they've gotten better in 4 months, and they're not in a hospital bed taking up that room or the MRI or the x-ray. Or if we can get people better faster, then all those beds open up, and now everybody gets better care. And I'd also like to see the people who have to pay, those doctors are now going to be making a bigger profit. They have to contribute to the public system. And all of a sudden it becomes competitive, and we can attract more doctors. Because right now, doctors are quitting because it's not worth the headache, it's not worth the pain, it's not worth the hassle. But if all of a sudden we pay better and their job doesn't suck so much, the province who's willing to make this a competitive business is going to be the province that draws all the doctors to them.
Well, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for your analysis today, Tracy. Good to hear from you. 1-833-668-2577. Very busy on the topic today, but time to fit you in on a mixed healthcare system for Canada. Public over here, private over here. Maybe a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. Where do you stand on that? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
A mixed healthcare system in Canada. Where do you stand on this? Public healthcare, private healthcare, a mix of the two. Nick is up next. Hi, Nick. You're on the air, Nick. What's your opinion?
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Very good, Nick.
Hey,
Thank
Rob,
you.
how you doing?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Good.
Thank you. I'm definitely in support of a two-tier system. There's an organization called the Commonwealth Fund. Anybody can search them online, and they measure healthcare outcomes around the globe. So they kind of categorize it into access, outcomes, cost. They'll further categorize into like bureaucrats per citizen. And so the Commonwealth shows that the best healthcare outcomes in the world for access, outcomes, and cost have a mixed system. Most of them would be found in kind of Western European countries, or even like South Korea has an interesting mixed healthcare system as well. But Canada, when you look through the Commonwealth Fund, and it's very unfortunate. I wish this wasn't the case. It's sad. We rank at the bottom of access, outcomes, cost when looking at like G7 industrialized nations, and our current system, maybe, with all the good intentions that are behind it, it's not delivering. And, I'm grateful for the people that have their stories, that have received access, that were able to get the procedures or whatever it was they need. But we have 30,000 people a year as an estimate that I've heard and read, people dying on wait lists in the year. We have medical tourism, so to speak, where millions of dollars are leaving this country every year for mostly cancer treatments, but definitely other treatments. And now it's not just tax money that's being lost. Behind that money is scientific advancements, different diagnostics, different treatments that we're not even integrating into our system. And when you look at the Commonwealth Fund studies, these countries, Western European, Southeast Asia, South Korea, they have a well-integrated model. And the key is actually the doctors. They just have the ability to sort of opt in and out and allocate their time accordingly, because, all the good intentions in the world, I don't think rational allocation of resources is possible through a central planning mechanism. So you have to have this market incentivization to offset, and I think the data is pretty clear. So, that's my thoughts, Rob.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Thank you for your call. It's interesting that you brought up the Commonwealth Fund. I was looking at the Commonwealth Fund's most recent report that came out about a year ago. Well, I was looking at that a few weeks ago. We did another show on healthcare. You're right. It compares the healthcare systems of 10 high-income countries: Canada, Australia, France, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Sweden, Switzerland, the UK, and the United States. And it looks at 70 performance indicators across 5 areas: access to care, care process, administrative efficiency, equity, and health outcomes. And you're right. We're one of the lowest ranked countries. Why? Wait times, especially in ERs, and wait times to see a specialist, and after hours care, particularly bad. So that goes to access to care, after hours care, particularly bad when we compare to other countries. We get high marks for things like vaccination rates, chronic disease management, but then we get low marks on the use of digital technology. We're about average when it comes to administration. We rank high on equity because it's public. We have a public system and it's universal, and nobody's going insolvent because of a medical condition. But overall, closer to the bottom than the top when compared to 10 other high-income countries. Thank you, though. Thank you for all your calls today. Such an important topic. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that draft legislation in the province of Alberta, reported on in the paper today. Back tomorrow with a brand new topic, more of your calls, and always the latest breaking news on News Radio.